Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Village of Bartlett Committee of the Whole meeting for December 5, 2023. I call this meeting to order and ask the clerk to again please call the roll.
Trustee Daney?
Here.
GANDSEY?
Here.
GUNSTEEN?
Here.
Hopkins?
Here.
Laporte?
Here.
Swansky?
Here.
President Wallace?
Here. With our newfangled order of engagement here at the COW, affectionately referred to as the cow, we have a town hall portion, so if anyone would like to address the cow, kindly step up to the podium and state your name and address for the record. Would anybody like to address the committee at this time? Committee of the Whole says no. Chris, anyone online?
No, there is not.
All right, we'll move on. Standing committee reports. Building and Zoning Committee Chairman GUNSTEEN.
Thank you, President Wallace. We have one item tonight, and that is our sign code discussion. The village staff has been evaluating the village's current sign code to improve the effectiveness and usability of the code for businesses and village staff. At the Economic Development Commission meeting, November 13th, a discussion was held on the most common concerns with the sign code. These five items were discussed: display frontage, changeable message center, window signs, advertising flags, unified business center signs. And with that, I will turn it over to Christy Stone.
Thank you, Chairman GUNSTEEN. We've started looking at sign code updates, and we just wanted to give you some input on what was recommended by the Economic Development Commission. They felt that wall signs should be permitted on all building elevations that are not directly abutting residential property. So that's a little bit more lenient than what our current code allows. They felt our changeable message reader board signs that we have at Culver's and some of the car washes, they felt those were an appropriate size. There was no need to increase them. They would like us to strictly limit the 25% coverage for window signage. That was something that's been, enforcement has not been consistent with that over the years, especially during COVID. It got a little bit more lax. They thought it's gotten out of hand with how much coverage there is. It's making some buildings look more like billboards. For advertising flags, I would say this was the longest portion of the discussion. They felt we should allow businesses to have the flags 2 times per year with either a 30 or 60-day time limit. They want us to limit the number of flags on a property based on the amount of frontage that the property has, so the flags have to be a certain distance. And they also wanted us to require permits so that staff could enforce when those time limits are in place. They felt the Unified Business Center sign plan should be simplified so that it's more uniform overall with the village. It's hard to have each shopping center have its own set of rules. And then they also felt that we should create some specific findings of fact to allow sign exceptions or variations, because they felt signage should be looked at on a more case-by-case basis.
Okay.
So based on that, we wanted to know if the Committee of the Whole has any feedback on those. We'd like to start drafting some changes.
We just go through them one by one and see if we have any questions on them.
Sure.
For the first one, if that's the one we're going to discuss first, I think the signage on the elevation should be limited to the square footage of the elevation, and I believe it currently is.
It is, but it does allow you to calculate the aggregate as well. So it has been enforced differently. There have been different zoning administrators that have interpreted calculating the aggregate signage allowed and how that's distributed.
Wouldn't happen to have any examples of what that would look like, do you?
So for example, on Moore,
All right.
they have linear display frontage on Oak Avenue. They also have some on Railroad Avenue. Because part of the wall sign is part of the wall on the east side is visible from Oak, that was considered frontage. All of the signage that they were allowed, if you based those calculations, they were allowed to have more signage overall based on what their frontage was. So they were able to take some signage that would have been allowed on Oak and transferred that to what is facing Main.
Well, it'd be pretty tough to change that, it's already existing.
Yes, but going forward, we would have, if we have it stated more specifically how we're calculating the aggregate allowed signage, there wouldn't be as much interpretation.
The problem you have is by carrying the square footage from one side to the other side, you're now just taking the entire square footage of the three sides of the building and saying that they're allowed X amount of square feet of signage, where it should be based solely on that elevation, because a rectangle building is going to have smaller sides on the smaller side of the building and larger on the larger side. Where looking at more, they have this little 6-foot area that sticks out. Technically, the sign, if it was done the way I'm, talking about, the sign that is on the east elevation would have been significantly smaller and not it would have just have been smaller.
It would have been
East
more
or
in
the
scale.
north?
It's the wing of the stairs. If you look at the stairs, there's a gigantic sign on the east
It's on the
elevation.
north side of the building, though.
Faces the insurance agent.
So east.
Oh, I didn't even notice the sign over there.
So my thought is it should be held to the side of the building that you're putting the signage on for square footage, not carried over.
You agree with that?
I do. I think being able to take some allotment from one wall and transfer it to a different wall kind of defeats the purpose of keeping the signs in scale with the elevation.
I agree.
Would it be a special use if they wanted a bigger sign?
It'd be like a variation or a design exception.
You see, when I first read this, I had a real problem with it also. I don't want the downtown area lit up, like downtown Vegas and whatnot. So I think that has to be modified somehow, some way. If we do what Dan's talking about, or what,
Most villages that I've dealt with only allow two sides of signage unless you're on a corner where your third side faces the intersection. We're allowing it on all three sides. So if you have a building and you're putting it on the side of a building and your neighbor's building is right here, just because you could see this little sliver as you're making a turn, that neighbor has to look at that sign the entire time through that window. I think we need to find a way to prevent that from happening.
Well, you'd have to actually, I think, wouldn't it make sense then to determine the length of distance between buildings? Is it a standalone building? Because if it's a standalone building somewhere on 59, they might want one in the front, one on the side, one on the side.
Right. I think going back to the square footage, it can only be determined by the amount of square footage that precedes or sticks out past the neighboring property. I don't think you can take the whole wall, I'm using Moore Brewing as an example.
Yeah.
You can't take that whole wall that's against the insurance agent and say, well, they're allowed 5,000 square feet of signage, or, based off 5,000 square feet. I don't think you can do that.
I think for the interpretation on that one was that they weren't using all the signage that they were granted on Oak, and they were able to transfer that allotment. So I would like to eliminate that going forward for when we draft the new zoning ordinance, that you can't add all of your frontage and then calculate that overall.
I would agree with that.
Yeah, and I think it's important too. I think trustee GUNSTEEN made a good point. If your building sticks out and there's one clear back here, you should be able to put something on this side. Based on the amount that it's sticking out, not on the whole wall.
Square footage that's exposed.
Yeah.
Yes. Any more discussion on that particular line item? Beat that one to death.
it's not modified. If this is not modified by staff, I'm not going to support this.
What's that?
What do you mean?
If we have to vote on this, I'm not going to support the way it's presented to us.
Now, this is just a starting point for discussion. We're going to draft a whole new chapter for the sign
I'm
codes.
giving you a heads up.
Okay.
Okay, the next one is the changeable message center reader board signs. Message centers, electronic message centers.
Was there interest in having something bigger?
Moretti's wanted one about twice the size that we allow,
It have a big arrow, flashing arrow, and
right? I mean, they wanted to be able to have, everyone always wants to go bigger than what we have. Everyone wants to ask for more. We tell them they can ask for a variance, but we haven't granted any.
You've seen the sign on the Mirage, just smaller than that.
Our monument sign code, what is the square footage allowed for a monument sign out in front of a building?
For the building, we allow it to be up to 10 feet tall for
Okay.
some of them. It's dependent on the linear frontage that they have, so it varies on site. But ground signs, the message board does not count as part of your overall ground sign allotment.
So they potentially could put in a full message center instead of a monument sign.
They could, it wouldn't qualify as a message board sign. Like, the message board is limited, that type of sign is limited to 32 square feet. They can still have another sign above it, like Culver's has their typical sign, and then they have their message board underneath.
So we're allowing message centers up to 32 square feet
Correct,
per side,
yes.
east and west or north and south, okay.
How does that fall in line? I'm assuming this, like you see some restaurants in some places where they have the chalkboard out front, and they change it all the time. Is that considered, would that be considered part of that front property signage?
Those we consider temporary, so we don't have those kinds of requirements.
Okay.
Any questions on the message center? They don't,
I think that's fine.
keeping it at 32 square feet?
So that's what Culver's has, it's what G's has up on Lake Street.
I think they look,
You're looking, not reasonable, yeah.
That's fine.
all right, window signage. And when we talk window signage, are we talking flashing open signs,
Like
cling?
wrapping your car.
Yeah, static clings, all those type of things?
It's everything, yes. So basically, anything in the window, our current limit is 25% of the total aggregate of your windows. So if you have a 10 by 10, like 4 10 by 10 windows, you have 40 square feet versus, so we look at the overall 25%.
So I know that I've talked about this in the past with some business owners because it's been brought up. And I've talked to the police department about this too, about the visibility into the building. I'm a little bit torn on the right and the wrong here, just because of, I think this ordinance was written when people didn't have cell phones and they couldn't dial 911 from inside the building in any given second. And I think that there's some businesses that use more of that as signage. So I don't know.
Is 25% standard, or is that kind of a benchmark against other communities, or where did 25% come from?
It's really between 20 and 25%, what you see other towns allowing for it. Originally, when these were written, it was for the grocery stores that would have the paper signs where they would advertise what was on sale, and you'd see those. Grocery stores don't typically do that anymore, but that was really what this was geared towards when it was written.
Our current code is 25%.
Yes.
Have we ever had any issues or had to enforce that?
There's two businesses in the village I know of right now that are about 70%.
Yes. So we've
They have
done,
this sticky on there.
yes.
Would we grandfather those two villages that you're thinking about, Kevin, or would we, if those are businesses that are causing, that we're concerned about, would we be able to apply this to them?
I would assume we would grandfather them with the new ordinance, like we do everything else.
You could, I mean, typically, there are some businesses that we have had take them down. So Dogfather was one of them. At one point, you couldn't see in the building at all. He had advertisement specials where you could, if you were in the facility, you could see out, but no one could see in.
Is that why he closed?
Yeah, that was years ago, but during COVID, the enforcement kind of stopped, and then more and more businesses started covering their windows almost completely. And he brought it to staff's attention that it was, again, he felt he was treated unfairly previously.
I feel like it would have to be, that's the new standard.
Yeah, I don't know. For some businesses, it's a distinct disadvantage because especially for one business that happens to be a workout center, I primarily believe that he has at least half of it so people can't peer in and watch you working out.
Right.
It's kind of uncomfortable for some people to have people staring at you while they walk past their door. And
We're not saying they can't have blinds, we're not saying they couldn't have some other opaque covering. It's more the fact that they're using it as advertisement for the business.
Well, that doesn't solve the problem of safety then. Chief, what's your opinion on complete blind opaque blinds being up in businesses? Is that a safety concern for you guys?
Generally, when we do our patrols, when we pass by the businesses, we do like to see what's going on inside the businesses. I know that you mentioned that people have access to cell phones and stuff like that, but that's one thing that we do is when we do our patrols is we want to try to make contact and visually see the clerk inside the store or see what's going on.
Okay.
It makes it difficult the more that it's covered up.
So if it doesn't control blinds, anybody could put blinds up and cover everything.
And tinted black 100%?
That's not considered signage, so we wouldn't regulate it.
I feel like it's more like the look. If there's just like constant advertisement all over the place covering it, just kind of, it doesn't look, it looks like a discount, everything.
I have a tendency to be more lenient on this one than the 25%.
What are you guys thinking?
I think it should
If
be.
it looks like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, go ahead.
If it looks bad, it's only hurting their business. I mean, they're gonna have to realize that if the gym doesn't attract new customers, it's because nobody is encouraged to go in because they're not seeing somebody else do it, it's let them figure that out.
Would it make sense to, in this particular situation, leave the code at 25%, and if somebody wants to cover their whole thing with a sign, we have a public hearing for their neighbors that say, no, this isn't going to look right? And we would protest this, and then we'd actually come to a vote on a variance?
We could do that, we just have to make sure everyone is aware it's not content-based. Why we're denying a sign.
You're a ball of fun today.
Well, we do have ordinances for the massage business spas, right?
Correct, massage establishments are not allowed to have their blinds closed at all.
Or
Yeah, that does
signage
it.
either, right?
Correct, we have to be able to see inside.
Okay.
All right, any more questions on that one? If not, we'll go to advertising flags. So remind me what the EDC said about this?
So they thought we should allow each business to have up to 2 flags per year, or 2 flags 2 times per year for either 30 or 60 days each. That they should have to get a permit so that we could enforce whatever time limit is on it. And that we should just determine what the distance should be between flags so that you don't have 50 flags in front of one shopping center.
Are we charging for this permit?
Yes.
And the permit duration would be 30 days?
That's what we were asking, we were wanting more directions. They wanted 60 days, which if you have 2 60-day windows, you're basically allowing them to have flags up.
How many businesses do we have in town? Ballpark? 200, 300? So 200 times that many permits. How many people are going to go around looking and saying, oh, you're 61 days, we're going to take your permit away? That's just another thing for us to track. Unless we put like some kind of a carcinogen on there where it explodes when 60 days is up, gone. You got to get a new one.
So it's just so that we know when the flags are out. Otherwise, we have no idea how long it's been
I know,
there.
and
They can
it's-
argue, but
I totally disagree with the village trying to track whether it's a 30 or a 60-day time limit on those. We need to come up with a better idea. It's just another thing for us to try to figure out.
we were willing to prohibit them because they can be considered an eyesore due to the fact that there's so much wear and tear because it's moving fabric.
I like what other villages, I know Carroll Stream, whenever they have anything, if they're advertising a job or anything, you just go in for like a 1-week or a 2-week deal, and then you have to take it down. So it gets to be where they're not going to use it as a permanent fixture then, like a few of the businesses right on Oak here have, where they're all falling down in the wintertime.
They're all ripped and torn, and then they're just sitting there for
Yeah.
months. Like, I feel like less time, it's a promotion, it's something.
So, yeah.
I don't have a problem with them having them out there for, let's say, 30 days if they're promoting a brand new business. that no one's aware of.
I think that's a good point. I think that there could be a delineation for a new business for more attention, so that could be added into the ordinance. New businesses are allowed to stick out their banner for 30 days, and then you have to come in, and if you have some special thing you want to do, apply for a permit, throw your flag out there for a week.
That gets into the content, potentially, of what they're advertising.
That's the concern. We really can't regulate, you know, oh, this one can go up because it's a new business and this one can't go up because it's an older event. It's really going to have to be based on the you know, the physical characteristics of the location of the sign. That's the best way for us to.
Well,
You guys are
I-
really
why-
resistant tonight.
The courts have put a
Well,
lot
why
of restrictions on us.
Why can't you say for new business?
Well, what if someone
I
has,
mean,
they've
a
been
new
open
business
10
is a new
years?
business. A new business is a new business, right? There's no, it's not subjective as to whether there's a promotion that is important or not.
The problem there is you'd have to read the sign to be able to determine if it's appropriate or not. So you'd have to say, is this about a new business? You'd have to read the sign to say yes or no, and that's what the courts say we really just can't do. We can't enforce that type of regulation based on what the sign says.
I think all new businesses should be allowed to put, you know, signs up, no matter what. And personally, I don't have an issue with it. I know I have a business that has the flag signs. We take them down at night to prevent people from stealing them or them getting damaged. So I think, I don't know, I just don't want it to be a permanent fixture because somebody's upset that we lowered our amount of square footage of their building signage. So now they're like, well, in lieu of that, we're gonna put 5 signs out on the street and we're gonna leave them there every day. You know, so how do we monitor it? How do we keep that from happening? Other than that, I have no problem with them.
I feel like,
I don't care about content as long as it's not vulgar and.
We can say that if they're ripped, torn, in disrepair, they have to be removed.
Definitely that.
Yeah.
Definitely that.
what's wrong with saying 30 days?
What's the new licensing software that we have?
OpenGov?
Huh?
OpenGov is.
Yeah, OpenGov. Is there a timing mechanism on there where we wouldn't have to use personnel to track how long they've got a sign out? Can you click, use one of the,
So if they apply for a permit, and that's the big if they apply for the permit's issued for 30 days. I mean, we would be able to track, staff wouldn't have to do anything. Our code enforcement would get a list of when the flags expired.
okay, that makes sense.
Does it automatically
makes-
send an email to
Forgot
them?
about our new technology. That would make sense.
What was that?
Like if they applied for a permit and it's 30 days, would it automatically send an email to the business owner saying it's 30 days is up for the
I think
sign?
it does that.
I think we can add that step in there.
Yeah.
That's a great
I
idea.
think 30 days is,
Yeah, now that I remember that, I think 30 days is fine. Yeah.
Are you allowing multiple 30 days per address applicant? Because technically you do it every 30 days for, 12 months straight.
I don't have any, I mean, as long as they're nice signs, I don't have any problem with people having them out there. I just don't want the extra burden on the village to try to figure out when they're supposed to come down and when they're not. But I don't want, like you said, I don't want 5 of them in front of a building advertising cookies and everything else.
I think we could
I
draft
think we're a
something.
little divided on this. And maybe we need to think about some more.
Why don't you throw together a few of the ideas that you guys think, and then when it comes back to committee with the new ordinance, then we'll say, oh, I like that one better now, or, yeah.
Right, we can draft a few options for the Planning and Zoning Commission to go through as part of this.
Yeah.
Any more questions on flags? Unified Business Center plans, sign plans.
So these we wanted to simplify. Right now, each shopping center has a completely own set of rules. Some restrict what color you can have, some only allow national chains to do whatever colors they want, and if you're a single store owner, you're forced to do like blue. It's really random. We just like to simplify it and just really make sure that the signs are all placed in a similar location on each building, so site-specific, and that they all have to follow the same code so that everyone's getting the same rights for that.
Yeah, and that's been an ongoing problem for the last 10 years that I've known of. I mean, there's not been a month that goes by where somebody doesn't say, my shopping guy is telling me I can't do this. What do you give it a?
Yes, because they read our code, and then we go,
Yeah.
yeah, but that doesn't really apply to you. You're this
I
other
agree with the
case.
unified. The unified makes a lot of sense.
I would ask to draft that up for the next meeting as well.
Okay.
So, all right, if there's nothing else, that's all we have tonight.
Thank you, Chairman Gunstein. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have me.
We didn't get, wait.
We got one more?
Wait.
Oh, we got to do that? I'm sorry, Gansey. That went so long. I was like, oh my gosh, are we already? Usually you're the one that's talking about the signage and stuff, but, okay, community economic.
I was ready to second that.
What did he say?
I said I was ready to second the motion.
Yeah, you're on your fifth cocktail, too. Community and Economic Development.
Not yet.
Community and Economic Development Committee Chairman Gansey.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. We have one item, Village Strategic Plan. It's back in February 2017. We had the current strategic plan for the Village of Bartlett. We did comprehensive stakeholder surveys across various community segments. Following data collection and analysis, the plan was structured into 4 categories: short-term routine, short-term complex, long-term routine, and long-term complex objectives. Annual strategic planning sessions have led to incremental adjustments in the plan. Over the years, the Board of Trustees formally approved the 2021 Village of Bartlett Strategic Plan during the August 17, 2021 meeting. The attached document provides concise summaries detailing the status of goals, reflecting the board's successful implementation of many objectives outlined in the strategic plan. I'll turn it over to staff to give us a rundown. Thank you.
So this is the kickoff for our strategic planning process. I'm just going to walk you through a few things as an introduction and review. Why do we do it? Well, we do strategic planning because the village board has an opportunity to give us policy direction, overall guidance, especially on those big picture items. We do it to ensure that the staff is working toward the right priorities. It gives us a game plan and helps us direct limited resources. And it's a great communication tool because it allows us to express the direction that the board wants the community to move in, both to the community as a whole and to our staff. How did we get here? We have been doing strategic planning in the Village of Bartlett for 30 years. And I wanted to show you some of the goals that we have had over those years, some of those goals that have been expressed by one board, but actually come into fruition with other boards. So, strategic planning really has a much longer horizon than just one board. And so some things began as a conversation that becomes goals. 94, we talked about building a new clubhouse at Bartlett Hills. In 95, it was a goal to have senior housing facilities in the community. And that goal was expressed in 95, but we saw the first application in 2001 and 2004. The development of Brewster Creek Business Park, in 97, first building application was in 2000. 2001, development of the town center. That had many components. So in 2003, we were looking at the Brownfield redevelopment grant. In 2004, the first sale for the first condo building. Identifying objectives and building blocks. So I wanted to say that a number of these things, these goals that we put together are complex and they have many components. So we've got, in 2001, the bail fill, aggressively continue the fight was what was the goal in 2001, of course, and that fight went all the way to the Supreme Court. In 2001, it's developing the ball fields up at the Tri-County State Park is what we called it back then. From that decision in 2001, create a corridor plan for West Bartlett Road, first hit the plan in 2005, and in 2007, that plan was approved by the board. In 2006, we had finalized the agreement for the old train station to become a museum, and that was dedicated then 4 years later. Another aspect of our goal setting is to be responsive to community needs. And, you know, there's a number of examples up on the screen, but it really helps us to adapt and to address changing needs in the village over time. Some of the examples up there, addressing stormwater from flooding, the changing needs of safety demands in the community. You know, no one had envisioned school shootings or the kind of emergency responses that we are now faced with. So I'll add our vision and mission statements here to remind us that we really do look at our culture. We guide the core statements, and they really haven't changed over the years of our planning. They've been very consistent. Just a reminder for that. Our mission has stayed pretty solid for decades. Where are we? Well, here's some nuts and bolts. As Trustee GANDSEY mentioned, our plan is divided into long and short-term goals. It's also divided in between complex and routine goals. There are 24 goals in all. I'm going to go over each of them in detail now. No, I won't. In the interest of time, I'm going to go over our goals where the bulk really lies, and in that metric, it's short-term and complex category. So if you're following along at home, it starts with goal number 5, and I'll give you an update on where we are with these particular goals. Number 5 is to continue the business development strategy focused on attracting and incentivizing an additional grocery store in town. And I have a little model here that Dan provided for us. We all know that Aldi's is coming. That has been in our plans since 2013 when the Dominick's closed. And over the years, we have contacted over 20 grocery stores in the region. We met with about 6. When the development of Streets of Bartlett happened, that really ignited Aldi's interest because they wanted a neighborhood location. They were not interested in us pitching them Route 59. Over several months, as you know, we reviewed and negotiated an incentive agreement with them, and their 20,000 square foot store, as Christy reported, is going to open up in January. Number 6, continue the business recruitment strategy to attract developers to invest in the downtown area and provide options for the businesses to locate to Bartlett. The economic development team has worked to bring new tenants into the Bartlett Town Center, Main Street Plaza, the shops at 138 Oak, the barn behind Banbury Fair, and an office tenant in the former Tap location, and of course, more brewing, 2-story beer garden and restaurant. Number 7 is the continue to act on the strategies for development of Railroad Avenue vacancies. In addition to the new restaurants in the State Farm building with the apartment above, the expanded Railroad Avenue parking lots were just completed this week, and progress continues on Development Site E. The owner is working with the various utilities to get the easements they needed to break ground this spring. As you recall from the capital budget discussion, we've been working on a sidewalk replacement and landscaping beautification plan along Railroad, and that's partially funded with a grant from Metra. Number 8, develop community branding plan. The process started in November with the RFP and the selection of A5 Branding and Digital to create the campaign. The first phase of that was data collection, and so far the branding survey has captured over 1,000 responses A5 will be returning to the board in January to report on the survey results, and then also prepare concepts for the multi-year marketing plan. And those additional phases will be part of the budget review for where you want to fund those.
How is the survey going?
It's going great. We've been able to capture a number of targeted audiences, as well as people hitting the QR code and just responding in
Do you
general.
feel like they're getting the numbers?
Yes. Number 9. Number 9 is to work to improve the retail business profile of the village. And we've had a larger increase on our social media presence in this area. We've also gotten some nice traditional coverage in the press as well. Bartlett is lucky to have an extremely low vacancy rate of just 6%. Most vacant spaces in downtown are now full, and we're going to be turning our attention more to the shopping centers along Route 59. The new car dealership on Lake Street is expected to be opening for sales at the start of 2024, though Christy tells me that they were vacuuming the offices last week when she was there, so that might be even a little faster. Number 10 is to revisit, refine, and execute our overall economic development incentives. We have been working on fine-tuning the BETA incentive program. That has resulted in over $8.4 million of private investment in Bartlett. But that program is just one of the tools we use. We've waived fees. We've entered into sales tax sharing agreements. We've supported Cook County tax incentives that really are vital to some of those larger developments like McKesson, Colonial Display. We've seen these incentives be able to attract the Culvers and Aldi and more, and of course the Genesis and Hyundai dealerships. We're closing out the Brewster Creek TIF district, which has grown the EAV from roughly $3 million at its beginning to what we anticipate to be in excess of $100 million when it's all said and done and closed out. The 11th goal is developing a strategy to connect the east and west sides of Bartlett. I think that is one that we still have some work to do on. I think the branding survey will give us some insight into that issue and maybe present some solutions for us. Of course, when we're working with the connectivity of the bike path under Route 59 as part of the Grasslands development, big push for that, and staff has been working with the developer to submit plans and respond to the comments from IDOT. We are also in the process of applying for a $150,000 grant that is for Phase 2 engineering for that underpass, and if Cook County approves that, we will look to bring the intergovernmental agreement to the board relatively soon in the new year. Number 12 is to improve bike path and pedestrian pathway routes, so we'll continue the theme bike paths. In addition to the path on 59, the South Bartlett Trails was resurfaced. That work was coordinated with the Park District to coincide with their resurfacing of the adjacent path around Community Park. Our staff resurfaced sections of the Newport Trail and will be moving to pass off Struckman Boulevard. Bike lanes from Lambert to Naperville were striped. An additional path along Naperville Road will be installed with the Grasslands development as well. And if you'll remember, we all stood out there and had our picture taken because we got a $500,000 grant from the state to do the crossing at the railroad there. Hopefully the state will actually give us that money. That'd be awesome. And of course, the Bike and Run Committee supported the submittal of a bike-friendly community designation application with the League of American Bicyclists. Finally, Brewster Creek Business Park Path was added along west side of Munger and south to Stern. So a lot of work with bike paths and connecting up the community. Finally, the last goal that I'm going to talk about is to determine the need for a TIF district on Lake Street. Tesca Associates presented the TIF eligibility report to you in September. They returned in November to talk about potential land uses, and we anticipate hearing back from IDOT on our request for the state to vacate its right-of-way along Lake Street. That answer should be coming in January. So more to come on the Lake Street TIF. There are the remainder of those 24 goals and the update of those status on where they sit is in the memo that Scott put together, but I just wanted to really talk about that particular quadrant of the plan where really the bulk of our action has been. All 39% of it. The timeline for the plan itself and developing it, today's the kickoff. Next Tuesday, on the off Tuesday, we'll be doing the workshop, kind of getting into the nitty-gritty on setting goals.
And no, we don't get paid overtime either.
No, but I might get you dinner. And then from that meeting, depending on how that goes, either we'll need another meeting, or we can move to setting objectives with the staff. And I've got roughly the schedule, it coming back to you at Committee of the Whole in the first meeting in February, and then approving in the second meeting in February on the 20th. As Alice says, you know, where should I go? And the cat responds, depends where you want to end up. So now you have homework. To get us really into the framework for our discussion next Tuesday, I have 4 questions for you to think about. I would like your three top responses to those questions, and that'll be kind of the jumping off point for our discussion when we meet on Tuesday. And, you know, you've seen some of these questions before, the 5 and the 10-year. New is kind of what you don't want to see. We always kind of use that as a positive, but let's try and do the reverse. And then changes to what should be improved, eliminated, or expanded. We'll also look at the plan itself to see what can stay, you know, what has been accomplished and can move out of the plan, what might move to a different time frame. You know, maybe it's not as complex as it used to be. Maybe the time frame is shortened up on it. So that's what we're doing next Tuesday.
Super.
So we can get rid of that request from trustee Daney to put like the horse and buggy hitch.
And no more buggy whips. No
No
more
more.
buggy whips.
Can't use whips.
Quick question. How many hours do you think you guys spent putting all these stuff together collectively?
Oh, geez.
I'm just curious. And what changed their mind, do you think?
What changed?
What changed their mind over all the years you spent doing it? I mean,
Over the 30 years?
yeah, like what made them want to come here all of a sudden? Do you think it was a vibrant revision of our downtown?
No, I think just the growth in the community drove a lot of the older plans, you know, adapting to the huge boom in residential growth in the early 90s really impacted every kind of service that we provided, and our personnel, and just a level of sophistication that was needed to adapt to having, you know, to going from 13,000 people to 40,000 people. The other part of that is, you know, after the rooftops comes the commercial and the industrial. So we've really kind of just ridden this arc of responsiveness to the growth. I think what the next phase is, and I think your challenge going forward, is to figure out what is that next 50 years, where we're not going to see that huge boom, but it's going to be the infill and, you know, kind of around the fringes, and then the maintenance
years?
of it.
Did you say 50 years?
Yeah, we have to
Yeah.
plan for when you're
I
gone.
think 50 years is a reasonable, you know, horizon to kind of look at. That's all I
So
have.
to your point, as to Aldi, was it possible that also that their philosophy changed also kind of coinciding with our growth as far as looking at neighborhood downtown stores? Did we happen to just,
We flirted
because
with,
they,
we flirted
they
with them
wanted-
we
they
flirted with them for a
specifically wanted that,
long
right?
time, and it was the redevelopment and the investment in that center that got their attention.
And that's what I was asking, because I feel like some people don't realize how the BETA program has successfully worked in certain cases. It might not be directly, but the long term and how many hours you put in at Aldi's was a result of some of that investment.
Oh, absolutely, 100% that's true. There's no way that Aldi was going to look at that location unless it was totally revamped, and the previous owners wouldn't have ever revamped it. So,
That's why I was asking. I wanted to see if you thought that that was a success of that, or a success story of the BETA for that area, so.
Oh, yeah. And more, and 120 Live. I mean, I could point to a lot of positive impacts from the BETA just in those like sleepier parts of town that we, you know, we had talked a long time about, you know, some vibrant life and, you know, feet in the streets. And we're now seeing those plans pay off.
we've been talking in this village since I was the chairman of the chamber, which was, phew,
Don't do the
20
math, Mayor. Don't do the math.
a long time ago, yeah, about, what's the secret to getting more businesses downtown. It's not really that complicated. It's development, it's incentives. You get more feet on the street, you get more businesses down there. That's why that apartment building's so important.
Creates consumer confidence.
Yeah.
Consumer sometimes is the entrepreneur.
And, you
Is
know,
confident.
building on momentum
Momentum, sure.
is another big.
So we'll have the results of that survey in January, so we can use that like during strategic planning time, correct?
I think that'll really kind of, I know, Sam, were you in that meeting with A5? I think we'll have that information. We'll be able to make it part of the review that we have in February, you know, kind of a check to see, you know, did we miss something? Are we way off base here? Is there something, you know, that we were blind to? Or is there something we should amp up that's already in the plan?
Okay, thank you.
Fantastic. I think it's really important that you go through that once in a while, because I think the general public doesn't understand that strategic planning does lead to results, and that the results are a direct result, the results are a direct a feather in the cap of staff. They're listening, they're actually executing, they're making things change the way that the board's requesting, and then they're doing things well. So, well done. I mean, that's really good to revamp what you guys have accomplished from just what some board, even past boards' visions were. So that's what is making Bartlett what it is right now. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, all right. Well, with that, we'll have our strategic planning session next Tuesday.
Thank you, Chairman Gansey. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn now.
Second.
Moved by trustee Daney, seconded by trustee Gansey. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Gansey,
Yes.
GUNSTEEN.
Yes.
Hopkins,
Yes.
Laporte,
No. Sorry.
Laporte, Swansky.
yes.
We are adjourned.